Thank you. My name is Samuel Tafarra. I am an assistant professor at the Center for African and Asian Studies at the College of Social Sciences in Addis Ababa University. I think reaching a consensus or an agreement with Egypt is very, very difficult. The actions of Egypt over the past 10 or so decades have been promoting the agenda of greed and exclusionary principles to use the waters of the river Nile with little regard to the development interests and aspirations of all countries with the exception of Sudan. So despite Ethiopia's stance and position in terms of promoting a cooperative spirit to bring all the Nile Basin countries together to frame their cooperation through the cooperative framework of agreement that was signed in 2010 and 11 has been the only positive development in the region, and Egypt has always been standing against that establishment. So our efforts haven't resulted in a comprehensive deal to reach an agreement in terms of utilizing the river properly. So I think it's time for Ethiopia to rethink once again that we don't need to waste more time, we don't need to waste more energy, we don't have any resources actually to cover those nonsenses, right? So enough is enough. We need to say, this is it. We've done our best. We've contributed what we can, and Egyptians were not responding positively to our positive request. So this has to stop, and you need to go back to our business. I think that has been there for over a century, as I have stated earlier. Beating a war drum, that has been there. And Egypt has been engaged in that propaganda that promotes a greed. It was engaged full-time as an all-seasons business since time immemorial. And what was wrong was we were not able to respond appropriately to Egypt's promotion of greed, promotion of instability in the Horn of Africa, and particularly in Ethiopia. So we need to shift. Rather than refuting, rather than defending or responding to the issues that Egyptians have been raising so far, to promote or to prove the right to the use of Nile water, particularly their historic right to the use of Nile water. And we need to establish our own discourses. We need to come to the forefront of the all-round table discussions. We need to tell the world that Ethiopia, with such a cooperative and positive spirit, has to be the agenda center for all the negotiations, for all the engagements that we're going to have in the future. Not only on GERD, but also in any development discourse, in any development project that's going to come again within the context of the Nile Basin framework. Yeah, we can make a number of comparisons. Like, let's take the population size. We've almost nearly the same population size, but Ethiopia having around 110 million, whereas Egypt has 100 million. Access to rural electrification. Egypt has, as we speak now, they have managed to have a full coverage, 100% coverage of rural electrification. In Ethiopia, we have only 31% having an access to electricity. That's just electricity. We have power shortcuts, interruptions, and problems related to that. In terms of GDP per capita, if we take 2018 figures, Ethiopia stands at about $777, while Egypt stands at 2,500 USD. And you know what? In 1965, just before the launching of the Aswan High Dam, they were standing at $163 US. And you can imagine how much they skyrocketed over the course of that particular period from the launching of the highest wonder. So it contributed much to their development. Again, access to basic sanitation facilities. We stand at 7%, while 94% of Egyptians have access fully covered to basic sanitation services. In terms of potable drinking water, we stand at about 40%, while they stand about 99%. And you can mention a lot. The annual estimate of revenue that they have generated from export of items, like for 2017, is about 23 billion US, while we are only at $3 billion. You can see the disparity, the income and revenue disparity from exports. And you can see how much that contributes to local development, to the development of infrastructure in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of energy, and the subsequent contributions it has to the overall development of the country. And again, not only that, GDP, in terms of water storage, where they very much are loud about, they have a surface storage of 108 billion cubic meters, while we have only 30. They have underground storage of 63,200 billion cubic meters of water, while we have only 12.7 billion cubic meters. You know, it's not as they stated. They have always said Egypt, the River Nile is a matter of life and death. It's about survival. But it's more a matter of life and death to Ethiopians than to Egyptians. So we need to speak about those figures. We need to support our narratives with evidences and with figures, and speak to the world that there is an imbalance, there is an unfairness. While we're always promoting this principle of equitable use of the Nile water within the basin in a cooperative manner, they've been promoting an agenda against that. And this has to be discussed very well. Our ambassadors, our diplomats, our politicians, our writers, our medias have to seriously mainstream these issues and speak about it daily. And they should reach the world through using different languages, through using different channels, and so on and so forth. So we have done little, while we have the truth with us, and they have gone far beyond while they don't have a truth at all. As you've mentioned, there is this awakening in all fronts, right? Writers have been writing and expressing their opinions on different forums, in print media, in broadcast media, and in digital medias about how unfair Egypt was towards the use of the Nile water, and how unfair its actions were actually suppressing the development potentials, affecting the development aspirations of all countries in the Nile basin. And I think the world has somehow listened to our opinions, our cries. And a very good manifestation is the awakening of the Arab bloc, particularly the decisions of Djibouti, and Somalia, and Qatar, rejecting and declining Egypt's proposal to stand by its side and favor its greed and its hegemony over the use of the Nile water. So the Arab bloc, particularly the Arab League, has shown consistently its support to Egypt. But now I think through the PR activities, through the activities of the media, and through various promoters, we were actually able to reach out the Arab audiences and give them enough evidences to support our case. And that's a reflection of it. And I think with continued engagement, with continued contributions and promotion works, we could bring together more of the Arab bloc and the rest of the world towards our direction. It's a very important point to discuss, and even while Egypt was inviting non-African observers or mediators to join the negotiations or to lead and coordinate the negotiations, Ethiopia has consistently been telling Egypt and Sudan that we need to bring back the issue and the negotiation to the context of Africa, right? So we need to use Africans, the African Union, and other countries like South Africa to mediate the negotiations particularly the trilateral negotiations that we have been that have been like rolling among the three groups. But Egypt has taken a different side. They have chosen to address the issue, to refer the issue to the United Nations Security Council. One, they have tried to take the issue to the Arab League, and it's a couple of times in both institutions. And this shows how they value Africa and Africans to address African solutions. It's a very simple expression of the way they look Africa as a source of solutions, potential solutions to mediate conflicts that happen within the soil. And that stand has continued still, and they still insist not to bring back the discussions within the framework of an African context, right? So we have been working towards that. They have been working against that, and in the end, it's their choice. And I think we have to be very bold about it. When it is under our control and it's under our interest to invite observers that we want, and those observers would I think be Africans, and the Ethiopian government has shown a very strong stance on this, and that should be the way forward. Usually we should differentiate between our Egyptian brothers and sisters and some politicians who promote an agenda of instability, an agenda of greed, and an agenda of a right to a resource that excludes other beneficiaries in the Nile. So I think our Egyptian brothers and sisters would understand our genuine concerns and our genuine causes, and would stand together. And it's evident, we have seen some Egyptian experts and professionals speaking against their government that the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is not a matter of life and death for Egyptians, but actually it benefits a lot, right? So I hope with continued work, with continued PR work and communication work, we would manage to reach out to a number of Egyptians and also other communities within the Arab League to support our cause and to stand together with us in our effort to lift ourselves out of poverty and lift actually our brothers in the neighborhood to lift out of darkness and poverty as well. Thank you.